Algebra 1, this is lesson 57, finding the least common multiple. We're going to, the least common multiple, what you have to do is take the number or expression and factor it. You want to find the prime factors. Once you find those prime factors, you find out how many times each factor appears. So if it's the number 2 and it appears 2 times in one of the factors and 3 times in the other factor, you're going to use the most times it appears, so 3 times. If you have 3, it appears once in one number and once in the other number, you're just going to use the 3 one time. You'll multiply those factors together and it'll be your least common multiple. So first example, it says find the least common multiple of 24 and 36. So we're going to take 24, factor it, and 36 will factor it. So you can do a factor tree if that helps you. 24, if you've never done a factor tree, we find out what prime number can divide 24. So 24 can be divided by 2, that's a prime number, and you end up with 12. Now this cannot be divided anymore because it's a prime number. We're going to find out what 12 can be divided by, what prime numbers. It can be divided by 2 and you end up with 6. 6 can be divided by 2 and you end up with 3. Neither of these numbers can be divided anymore because they're prime numbers. So 2 times 2 times 2 times 3 are the prime factors. So we have 2 3 times and 3 one time. You can do the same thing with 36. It can be divided by 2. You end up with 18. This is a prime number. 18 can be divided. If you divide by 2, you end up with 9. This is a prime number. This is not. 9 can be divided by 3, and you end up with 3. These are our factors. These are our prime factors. So for 36, we have 2 times 2 times 3 times 3. So if you need to use a factor tree, go ahead and use it. They're very helpful. Now to find the least common multiple, you identify how many times a number appears, and we want to use it the most times. So we have 2, and it appears 2 times in 36 and 3 times in 24. We're going to use the most times it appears. Then we have 3. It appears 1 time in 24 and 2 times in 36. We're going to use it 2 times. The least common multiple is going to be 2 times 2 times 2 times 3 times 3. 2 times 2 is 4. 4 times 2 is 8. 8 times 3 is 24. 24 times 3 is 72. So that's our least common multiple of 24 and 36. Now we have to find the least common multiple of 11, 12, and 18. Okay, you can use your factor trees. 11 can't be divided by anything except itself. 1 and 11 are the factors, but we never need to use 1 because anything times 1 is going to be the same. 12. If you use your factor tree, it can be divided by 2. You get 6, which can be divided by 2, and you get 3. These are our factors, 2 times 2 times 3 for 12. If you did 18, it can be divided by 2. You get 9. Divide that by 3, and you get 3. So our factors are 2 times 3 times 3. Our least common multiple, we'll figure out 11. We'll use that. It appears 1 time. 2 appears 2 times in 12 and 1 time in 18. We're going to use the most times it appears, so 2 times, and 3 appears once in 12 and twice in 18. So we have 2 times 2. We have 2 2s, 2 3s, and 1 11. If you multiply that all together, 2 times 2 times 3 times 3 times 11, you get 396. Now, what happens if you have an algebraic expression? So all you're going to do the same thing. So it says to find the least common multiple, 10a squared c to the 4th and 15a cubed c cubed. Write that down and find the factors of each of them. The first step you're going to do is you're going to find the factors of the coefficient, which is the number. So 10, you can divide it by 2 and you get 5. So these are our factors for 10, 2 times 5. And for 15, if you divide that, it can't be divided by 2, but it can be divided by 3. You get 3 and 5. Okay, so we factored our coefficients. Now we need to factor the variables, a squared, c to the 4th, a cubed, c cubed. It's just how many times do we have a here? We have it 2 times. Your this right here is going to tell you how many times you have the number. And you have C 4 times. I'm running out of space here. Okay, and then here we have A 3 times. And we have C 3 times. I gotta erase this factor tree. Okay, now to find the least common multiple, you look at your coefficients first. 2 appears just one time. The most time 3 appears is once, and the most time 5 appears is once. So for our coefficient, it's going to be 2 times 3 times 5. And then the most times A appears twice here, 3 times here, 4 times here, and 3 times here. We have C. We're going to go with the 4 times. So we have A times A times A, or basically A cubed, C times C times C times C, or C to the 4th. To find the least common multiple, 2 times 3 is 6, 6 times 5 is 30. We have 3 A's, so it's going to be A cubed, and 4 C's is going to be C to the 4th. That's our least common multiple. I'm going to skip example 3 because it's the same as example 2, except for you have 3 expressions instead of 2. So now example 4, it says find the least common multiple of 3x plus 1 and 2x plus 9. This right here is a polynomial. So you're going to have, instead of just 3x, you're going to have 3x plus 1. You're going to have a plus or a minus between these two numbers. So we need to find the factors first. So we have 3x plus 1 and we have 2x plus 9. Well, to factor 3x plus 1, this polynomial, what you need to do is you need to first factor your coefficients, these numbers. 3 and 1. Do they have any of the same factors? No. Okay, so it looks like this cannot be factored. This is prime, 3x plus 1. 2x plus 9, 2 and 9 cannot be factored. And neither of these, the second number does not have a variable, x. So 2x plus 9 is also a prime factor. So our least common multiple, you're just going to take 3x plus 1 appears one time, times 2x plus 9 appears one time, 2x plus 9. Since they're both prime, this is going to be our answer. Now, what happens if they're not prime? Okay, find the least common multiple of 7x squared plus 21x and 6x plus 18. Write them down. So the first thing we need to do is factor our coefficients, these numbers. 7 and 21, do they have any factors in common? Yes, 7 is a prime number. It can go into itself one time. 21 can be divided by 7 and you end up with 3. Okay, so we're going to take a 7 out of each of these. So that's what we're going to write first is whatever we're dividing out. X squared and x. There's 2 x's here and 1 x here. We can take 1 x away from both of them. Just factoring. Now, whatever's left over is going to go inside parentheses here. So work with your first term right here, 7x squared. If we divide it by 7x, so 7x squared divided by 7x. The 7's cancel. You can cancel this x because there's 1 here and there's 2 here. You're going to be left with 1x, or x to the 1 power. So x is what is left over. That's going to be what's left in our first term. Don't forget your plus sign. Now 21x. Divided by whatever we factored out, which was 7x. Okay, the x's can cancel. There's just 1 x in each of them. For the coefficient, 7 and 21, we can divide both sides by 7. So 7 cancels itself out right here. 21 divided by 7 is 3, so our answer is 3. Okay, so 3 is what we put right here, and we close our parentheses. So to factor this, you take out whatever's the same or common between the two terms, and whatever's left over, you put it inside parentheses. So same thing here, 6x plus 18. 6 can go into both of these numbers. 6 goes into itself, and we'll figure that out, but it can go into both numbers. 18 divided by 6 is 3. Now x, there's an x here but not here. So our factor, what we're going to factor out is just 6. Okay, 6x divided by 6, the 6's cancel, you're just left with the x. Here, don't forget your plus sign. 18 divided by 6 is 3. So we have 6 times x plus 3. If you were to multiply that out, you'd get 6x plus 18. 6 times 3 is 18. To find the least common multiple, you need to write how many times something appears. Okay, so right here we have 7x. It appears one time. X plus 3 appears once here and once here. 6 appears once here. So our factors are going to be 7, put your numbers first, 7 and 6. 7 times 6, and then we have the x, that's everything that we factored out, and then we have the x plus 3. So 7 times 6 is 42. We have our x here, and then inside the parentheses, x plus 3. That's our least common multiple. Next, find the least common multiple of 60x cubed plus 24x and 45x to the fourth plus 18x squared. These are a little bit longer, but you use the same concept. 60x cubed plus 24x, 45x to the fourth plus 18x squared. We need to figure out for these two factors right here, 60 and 24, what can we factor out between them? Okay, so these 24 does not go into 60 evenly, so let's use our factor trees. 60, if you divide it by 2, you get 30, which can be divided by 2, you get 15. Divide by 3, you get 5. These are the factors for 60x cubed. Now, for 24, divide by 2, you get 12. Divide 12 by 2, you get 6. Divide 6 by 2, you get 3. So these are the factors for 24. Which one of these numbers are the same? We have 2 times 2 times 3 times 5. 2 times 2 times 2 times 3. Okay, so how many of these 2's can we take? If we're factoring, we use the least amount that it appears. It appears twice in 60 and 3 times in 24. We can only use it 2 times when we're factoring. So it's 2 times 2, and the 3 appears 1 time in each of them. We use the least amount of times it appears, and then the 5, we can't use the 5 because it only appears in the 60, not the 24. So we have 2 times 2 times 3. 4 times 3 is 12. So we can divide 60 by 12, and we can also divide 24 by 12. The next thing we're going to do, x cubed and x, they both have at least one x, so we can take one x out. Now we have to figure out what is left over. 2 times 2 times 3, remember that's 4 times 3, which is 12. We're going to see our greatest common factor here is 12x, so I'm going to change this to 12x. The next thing, we need to figure out what's in here. If we do 60 divided by 12, then we can find our least common factor. 60 divided by 12 is 5, and we took one x out of x cubed, so we have 2 x's left, or x squared. Don't forget your plus sign. 24 divided by 12, you get 2. We took one of the x's out, so we're not going to add any more x's here. This right here, for 60x cubed plus 24x, this is factored. This is our greatest common factor. Now, we have 45x to the fourth plus 18x squared. Again, we'll do our factor trees for 45. You can't divide it by 2. You can divide by 3. So 3 goes into 45 15 times. You can't divide by 2, but you can divide by 3. You get 5. So 3 times 3 times 5 is our factor for 45. And then 18, you can divide by 2. You get 9. And you can divide that by 3, and you get 3. These are our factors. Now, 2 appears in 18, but not in 45. That's not going to be one of our factors for right here. 3 appears twice in 45 and twice in 18, so we're going to use 3 2 times. 3 times 3. And then the 5 appears in 45, but not 18, so we can't use the 2 or the 5. Okay? So now we're going to look at, now that we've factored this, 3 times 3, which is the same as 9, we're going to see how many x's we can take out of each term. There's 4 x's here, 2 x's here, so we can take 2 x's out, and we'll have to figure out what goes in here. Okay, let's change this to 9. It helps our brain a little bit. Figure out what goes in here. So we have 9x squared is what we took out. If we take 9 out of 45, 45 divided by 9, we can find our factor. 45 divided by 9 is 5. If we take 2 x's out of here, we're left with 2 x's. Don't forget your plus sign. 18, if we divide it by 9, we're left with 2. We take 2 x's out, we're not left with any x's. So this right here is our greatest common factor for 45x to the 4th and 18x squared. Now to find our least common multiple, this is where it comes in handy to leave these 2 times 2 times 3 and 3 times 3, because then we'd have to factor this one more time. We don't want to do that. Okay, how many times does 2 appear? It appears 2 times. That's the most times for the least common multiple. 3 appears 1 time, 2 times here, we're going to use it here. So for our coefficient, we have 2 times 2, and for this, we have 3 times 3. Now, we need to figure out how many times x is taken out. It's 1x here, 2x's here. We're going to use the most x's for our least common multiple. So we have x squared. Then we want to figure out what goes inside. Right here, we have 5x squared plus 2, and here we have 5x squared plus 2. So we're going to leave it the same. It appears 1 time. Now we're just going to multiply these together and we'll have our answer. 2 times 2 is 4. 4 times 3 is 12. 12 times 3 is 36. And then we have x squared. And in the parentheses, 5x squared plus 2. That's going to be the most complicated one, okay? Because you're able to factor both of these. The last example is example 5. It says the math test is given every 9 days. Math is 9 days. Then it says a history test is given every 14 days. And a science test is given every 18 days. Okay, how many days into the school year will all 3 tests be given on the same day? So they want to figure out if you have a math test every 9 days, a history test every 14 days, and a science test every 18 days. How many days into the school year, the first time, will these tests all happen to be on the same day? Okay, so first you need to do is find the least common multiple for each of them. So factor each of them. Let's factor our 9. It can be divided by 3 and you get 3. If we factor the 14, it can be divided by 2 and 7. Those are both prime numbers. 18 can be divided by 2, you get 9, which is divided by 3, you get 3. These are all the factors. So now we need to figure out if we had all of these numbers, 9, our factors are 3 times 3. 14, our factors are 2 times 7, and 18, our factors are 2 times 3 times 3. For the least common multiple, we have 2 1 time in 14 and 1 time in 18. So we'll write that 1 time. We have 3 2 times in 9 and 2 times in 18. So we'll write 3 2 times. And then we have 7 1 time. To figure out what this is, you multiply them all together. Our least common multiple is 126. So all of the tests will be given on the same day in 126 days into the school year. So about halfway through the school year, you'll have a math, history, and science test on the same day. Okay, so now I want you to do for homework from lesson 57, I want you to do the practice problems A through H.